Alright, so today I want to talk about catch can. So my little cousin with the Jeep got me this nice little catch can setup. It's from UPR, and just want to talk about how their PCV system works and whatnot in these engines. So the factory setup has a hose that comes from the valve cover to the intake manifold. So during normal conditions, the engine is running in vacuum, so vacuums suck. So it's sucking from this connection to here. So in that configuration, yes, there is there is a baffle underneath this fitting to keep direct oil from coming up into that hose and going into the intake. But it doesn't work very well. I know this is a Ford application, but in the Chevrolets that I do, the connection that comes from the back of the valve cover up to the top of the intake, there's always oil in the intake manifold. When I pull them off, I'll set them on end right here, and about a half a quart runs out of them, because that's just the inherent nature of a PCV system in stock configuration. So on the Chevrolets, there's a hole in the baffle that some engineer that sat behind a computer and doesn't know how an engine works and needed to put a hole in the baffle, and he picked the exact spot right above a rocker arm. Well, oil comes up the push rod and then comes through the hole on the rocker arm and then falls down across the top of the rocker arm and then cools the spring. So that oil splash from the rocker arm, you know how many RPMs it's moving, is splashing oil straight up into that hole. Well, that hole is directly connected to the intake, which sees vacuum, and vacuums suck. So it's sucking that oil splash and oil vapor through the baffle, up the hose, and into the intake. So, in a naturally aspirated condition, it's not as detrimental or critical, but the oil contamination going into the intake manifold degrades your octane rating. So it causes detonation, and just all that oil is going through your intake manifold, through the intake ports, past the valves, and into the cylinder. So that oil vapor is mixing with the combustion gases in the cylinder, and it's not as efficient, and again, it's lowering your octane rating. So what the catch can does is, the hose on this side is connected, comes through here, it has a check valve, and the check valves on this always point away from the catch can. So this connection has vacuum on it because it's going to the intake manifold, and has a check valve in it, so in boost it can't backfeed this assembly. So it's sucking on this side of it, and then there's some black magic in here. So as it's sucking, it's pulling that would-be contaminated oil from this hose, which falls out of dilution into here. And so then, instead of going into the engine, it's caught in the catch can. And then there's a drain here, so after how many miles you can open it and see what comes out of it, and post images and pictures and ask if that's normal. Yes, it's normal. So that's how this configuration works. And this to me, this is an expensive setup. This was a plug and play kit from UPR. This was about $400, and it comes with all your pre-made hoses and everything, and whatever voodoo black magic they have in here. So like I say, that hose went from the valve cover to here. There was a hose that went from this valve cover to down there, and to be honest, I really don't know what that is. I can't see it, but these two are connected together, and the arrow for the catch can points this way. So anyway, that's the configuration and how this setup works. And so on a turbo application, you do not want to degrade the octane rating of your fuel, especially if you're on pump gas, because when you get knock, then you're gonna get, hold on, my dog's after the chickens. So in a turbo application, you do not want oil to get in there and to contaminate and degrade your octane rating, because it will cause it to detonate, and detonation on pistons in boost will destroy your engine. So that's why you want to run a catch can. I mean, in some applications, I vent the atmosphere, just vent the valve covered atmosphere and then cap this fitting. But, a catch can is the ideal way to do it. So, that's that. And then here's my Banks cold air intake. Now on this thing, so far the best mile per gallon I've gotten has been 17.5, and I really love this truck. It's I love the down low throttle response and love how well it runs and everything. So far I'm very pleased with this thing. I am gonna have to do the phasers and all that stuff eventually, and I think on these, the turbos are oil cooled and water cooled, so the water fittings are buried behind the back and of the engine. So I've read that you can get to them without pulling the cab, but if I'm doing the cam phasers and all that, I might just pull the cab and make it easier. So anyway, just want to explain that on the catch cans. And then my chickens are going crazy this morning. They're all in here knocking everything over, as you can probably hear and see. I've already fed them, but yeah. All right, so this thing right here, I got a little bit of work done on it yesterday. Candidly, I didn't really realize that I put the fuel rails on backwards, so I don't know how I did that, but it happened. So I'm gonna have to redo that, flip those around. The coil brackets hit the fuel rails, so I'm gonna have to, the instructions, they did send me some instructions. They said to drill out the holes and whatever, so I'm gonna have to do that and to get the coil packs down. I worked on this configuration a lot yesterday, trying to clean all this up. I pulled the factory drive-by-wire out of the ECU harness. Yes, chicken. So I got all this on here. I shortened a lot of these wires up, just basically unloomed everything back to here, and then put everything where it went, and then plugged it in. All right, sorry about that. So these wires were extremely long on this side, so I cut them out and soldered them back together and shortened most of the wires on this side. They were just way too long after you deloomed them and then plugged everything in where it went. And so like I say, we are leaving the stock computer and stuff. I went through and pulled out everything that we didn't need the first time I did this, and now since the blower is routed differently, so anyway, I'm just trying to clean all this up because it was just, I didn't like how everything was laying out, because before, it came over the top of the intake and then distributed where it went. So anyway, I just want it to look nice and clean, and then we'll loom all this up. I mean, that's just how it looks without loom, obviously. So, and then this is amp stuff, which I care nothing about. So I did. They sent me directions actually, but the first ones they sent, the accessory drive on this side wasn't in the right bracket. So I sent them a picture of the bracket I have, and they sent me the right directions for the bracket that I have. So I'm gonna work on the accessory drive today, try to get that tidied up and figured out and on. And then these fans, I had bought them, or he had bought them for it, and then they fit perfect. They couldn't have fit any better. I'm very happy with how well they fit. So I'll attach those to the radiator, and then I don't know if I mentioned, but this was the dipstick that I had, but it comes straight up, and it would end up being behind the blower, so you wouldn't be able to access it. So the one I got is the stock style that should hopefully come through that little hole right there, and clear everything. So but that won't be here tomorrow. So I'm just gonna work on everything I can work on and then while I'm working on everything, I'll be making a list of stuff I need when I go to Summit. So it's coming along pretty good. It doesn't look like a whole lot of progress, but that was about a day's worth of work. I got the headers bolted on, the plugs in there. I got the dogs under there chewing on something. We got a zoo over here. Let's see, the alternator and this bracket here. So got to figure all this out and get all that on, and get the correct dipstick tube for this. And then we ought to be ready to put this in the truck. Oh, I want to show you all the drive shaft. So this end is what came out of his. So that's a 27 spline. So I got the clips out. So I have to press this off. And then this is out of a 4-wheel drive truck. So the output, at least the output spline on your transfer cases, are 32 spline. I ran into an issue the other day. I've got a few transfer cases I'm trying to sell, and for some reason Chevrolet has 3 different splines on their on the input side, transmission side into the transfer case. So apparently there's a 27 spline, like a 29 spline, and a 32 spline. And unbeknownst to me, a Duramax for some reason has a 29 spline. You would think a Duramax would have a 32 spline, and the simplicity of manufacture, but I don't know why they did it that way. So, but at least from what I've encountered, the output of all your transfer all the transfer cases I've encountered have been 32 splines. So that actually went into a transfer case, and those work perfect for going to 4L80 conversion. So luckily those two are both aluminum, and the clips are the same. So I measured, and that it should just be the correct U-joint and not need a bastard joint. Whereas typically on the style like this, that have the stock Chevrolet ones that have the grease fitting in there where you got to heat up, and then it pushes out the wax or whatever, and then you press them out. This style, the ones behind the 4-wheel drive that had that style will interchange as well. Otherwise, you got to get a bastard joint to go from I don't remember what the number is on it, a 33R or something like that, to whatever the other side is. But it's a common conversion joint, and it's not too expensive, but that works out good for that. And I know I've seen a lot online, obviously, that the drive shaft lengths when you go to an 80, they're the same length. I have never had to change drive shaft when going from a 60 to an 80. All I've ever had to do is just change the yoke, and then everything has been good to go. It had the right engagement on the splines here, and everything worked good. So, Of course, now that I say that, this one won't work, right? But anyway, so that's where we're at on this thing. Just been trying to plug away and do what I can. It's just, stuff like this is very tedious, having to route everything. And it looks overwhelming at first, but you just got to plug everything in where it goes, and then just one wire at a time. And, like on this map sensor, so they send an adapter thing, and so you would have a plug that went in there, female side to here, and then the male side from the harness that plugs in. So I just did away with that and just soldered it so it's one connection, so that cleans that up a lot. And then this is your inlet air temp. So but yeah, it's a lot cleaner when you lay out. Like I say, I don't like how Holley does their harnesses, because the harness from the engine to the ECU is either way too long or way too short, depending on where you want to put it. And really the only way to do it is to build your own harness. Or there's some people, I think Devin Vanderhoof, I think he makes harnesses. Of course, he does excellent work, and you're going to pay for it. So I don't know what he charges for his harnesses, but I'm sure they're top-notch harnesses. But otherwise, you're just going to have to lay everything out and shorten length and wires as needed to get the desired location and result you're after. So anyway, that's the update on all this for now. Hopefully next time I'll be a lot further along with this thing. I'm really excited to hear this thing run and all. So, but we're getting there.